Hello, I'm Janine Turner, founder of Constituting America. I and Kathy Gillespie, Constituting America's CEO, welcome you to Constituting America's annual 90-day study. 90 plus 90 equals 180. History holds the key to the future. This year's study is on America's founding principles, and we would like to thank Amanda Hughes for orchestrating these wonderful studies. Principle of America's national sovereignty upon preventing loss of independence to foreign or global governments. Guest essayist, Chris Burkett. The previous essay number 17, showed that according to the principles of the Declaration of Independence, the people of the United States of America have a right from the, quote, laws of nature and of nature's God, end quote, to establish their independence and thereby their national sovereignty. Those same principles, however, that establish the right of a people to independence and sovereignty also impose a duty upon government to protect and maintain that independence and sovereignty once established. The duty of government to maintain national sovereignty and political independence arises from two arguments of the Declaration of Independence regarding the very nature and purpose of government. First, the Declaration of Independence asserts that it is the equal right of every people sharing the same political principles to form through consent a government laid on such foundations, quote, as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness, end quote. The Declaration of Independence also asserts that, quote, governments are established among men, end quote, for the purpose of protecting the natural rights of the citizens. These principles, therefore, impose a duty upon our government because independence is necessary in order for us as a people to determine what must be done for national security, which is, in turn, necessary in order for our citizens to peacefully enjoy their natural rights in the pursuit of happiness. A nation must maintain its independence. Therefore, free from the political control of any other nation in order to remain master of its own fortunes. Only when it has such liberty can a nation freely and prudently determine for itself what is necessary for the preservation, security, and happiness of its own people. The importance of maintaining political independence can also be seen in the writings of American founder James Wilson, signer of the Declaration of Independence, framer of the Constitution, and one of the original Supreme Court justices appointed by President Washington. In his important work, Lectures on Law, Wilson clearly echoed the Declaration of Independence on the right and duty of maintaining independence. Quote, the law of nations, properly so called, is the law of states and sovereigns, obligatory upon them is in the same manner and for the same reasons as the law of nature is obligatory upon individuals. The same principles which invents the right of a nation to do everything which it lawfully may for the preservation of itself and of its members, invents its right also to avoid and prevent as much as it lawfully may everything which would load it with injuries or threaten it with danger, end quote. The right and duty of the United States to defend its national sovereignty was also articulated by American courts well into the 19th century. In Schooner Exchange versus McFadden, 1812, for example, Chief Justice Marshall wrote that, quote, the world is composed of distinct sovereignties possessing equal rights and equal independence, end quote. In light of those equal rights, Marshall continued, the jurisdiction of the nation within its own territory is necessarily exclusive and absolute. It is susceptible of no limitation not imposed by itself. Any restriction upon it, deriving validity from an external source, would imply a diminution of its sovereignty to the extent of the restriction, and an investment of that sovereignty to the same extent in that power which could impose such restriction. All exceptions, therefore, to the full and complete power of a nation within its own territories must be traced up to the consent of the nation itself. They can flow from no other legitimate source." End quote. In its larger sense, political independence especially means the liberty that a people or nation has by right to decide when to engage in a war and continue in peace. George Washington understood well that to have full freedom regarding such decisions, the United States should have as little political connection with other nations as possible, by which they might have an undue influence in determining what actions we might or must take. This especially meant that we should avoid as much as possible engaging in permanent political or military alliances with other nations, a lesson the United States learned through the controversy over the French treaties during the French Revolution in the 1790s. During this time, Americans were passionately divided over whether the treaties with the French, agreed to by Congress during the American Revolution, obliged the United States to assist France in its wars against other European nations during the French Revolution. The issue nearly embroiled the United States in the French Revolution against its will and contrary to the desire of Congress. Reflecting on this challenge to American political independence in his farewell address, Washington wrote, quote, "The nation which indulges towards another an habitual hatred or an habitual fondness is in some degree a slave. It is a slave to its animosity or to its affection, either of which is sufficient to lead it astray from its duty and its interest." End quote. The peace and sometimes the liberty of nations, Washington wrote, had frequently been victims of such foreign attachments. This is especially so when, quote, "the policy and will of one country are subjected to the policy and will of another," end quote, through permanent alliances. Washington understood, therefore, that having, quote, "command of one's own fortunes," end quote, could hardly apply to a slave any more than a people who, quote, "interweave their destiny with that of any part of Europe or entangle their peace and prosperity in the toils of European ambition, rivalship, interest, humor, or caprice," end quote. Only when a people remains politically independent can it be free to select the means most conducive to its own safety and happiness, or, as Washington wrote, free to, quote, "choose peace or war as our interest, guided by justice, shall counsel," end quote. Christopher C. Burkett is Associate Professor of History and Political Science and Director of the Ashbrook Scholar Program at Ashland University. Thank you for joining us today for Essay 18. Please spread the word to friends and family and colleagues and schools through email and social media about this wonderful study on our American founding principles. And if you've ever had a conversation with someone about American exceptionalism and you believe America is exceptional and someone else says, "No, it's not," and you're sort of like, prove it. Like, okay, how do I prove it? Well, we have a wonderful study from last year, which is archived on this website, about how constitutingamerica.org, how and why we are exceptional, for 90 days, 90 essays on this subject, walking through the annals of history from the times of Greece and Rome and the Venice Republic, how our founders how they were exceptional in the respect that they learned from their mistakes and wrote our Constitution and the Federalist Papers that have now prevented us from falling into tyranny over the past 200 some odd years. So it's a wonderful study. Please check that out as well, so that the next time you say America's exceptional, you'll have all that proof in your toolbox. All right. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you here again tomorrow for Essay 19. Have a wonderful day.